A fresh plea has been filed in the Kerala High Court against the state government's plan to hold a mega oath-taking ceremony with 500 people tomorrow. Health Minister, the very popular KK Shailaja or Shilaja Teacher, who had earned praise all across India and indeed all across the world for her handling of the COVID crisis, will not be one of the ministers who will be sworn in because she is no longer going to be part of the Pinarayi Vijayan cabinet. And this has led to an uproar of anger and disillusionment over just why this popular and performing minister has suddenly been axed. Take a look at the story.
From Nipah virus to COVID-19. Kerala has been hailed by the world for its handling of health sector. And much of the credit goes to KK Shailaja, also known as Shilaja Teacher. The Health Minister of the state who hit the global headlines, the familiar, reassuring face of Shilaja will be missing when Pinarayi Vijayan and his new team takes oath on Thursday. Vijayan, who won a historic re-election on the plank of his government's handling of COVID and welfare measures, dropped the entire cabinet, opting for an overhaul. Shilaja, who won the biggest margin in the Kerala elections, says she has no grudge.
It is a policy decision that no one should continue to the next cabinet. And all the ministers were not there, and it is a very good decision, and it's a chance for the freshcomers, and they are coming, and I appreciate it, and I welcome the newcomers.
Her exclusion from the cabinet drew sharp reactions on social media, even from the rivals like Congress MP Shashi Tharoor. In the new regime, Shilaja will be the party whip, pretty much an insignificant post. Political pundits are now drawing comparison between Shilaja and KR Gauri, who recently passed away. Gauri had incidentally been denied the CM post by the CPM years ago. But unlike Gauri, Shilaja is unlikely to raise any murmur over her exclusion. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's just recap for you what KK Shailaja, she's been called the virus slayer, she's been called the COVID tamer, and she was popular all across India and across the world. Let me just list out for our viewers, because her face is very familiar to all of our viewers in India and around the world. Some of Shilaja Teacher's achievements. One, the handling of the 2018 Nipah virus outbreak in Kerala. That's when she first became very prominent. Two, big growth. Under her stewardship as the Health Minister, Kerala has seen a big growth in health infrastructure, especially at the grassroots level. Number three, very able handling of the COVID spread in Kerala, especially during the first wave. In the second wave, it's a different story. Number four, she has ensured that the Left Democratic Front could fight this past election on the healthcare plank. It's because of her performance that they were able to pitch healthcare as one of their big achievements. Number five, she provided visible leadership as Health Minister during the pandemic when there were already so many unknowns. So why was this virus slayer, this hugely popular Shilaja Teacher, dropped as the Kerala Health Minister? Wouldn't it make sense to simply continue her during this crisis? Official reason, you just heard it from her own mouth. The LDF policy is not to repeat any ministers twice. So if you've been a minister in one regime, you can't be a minister after that. But the political buzz on the ground is that Shilaja's rising popularity, her public relations overdrive, her imagery became a threat to Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. Another bit of political buzz is that there's always been this talk of Shilaja as being Pinarayi's successor. She's such a credible figure that she could be someone who could replace or succeed Pinarayi Vijayan as Chief Minister, and this may have also made her pay the price. A final bit of political buzz is that Shilaja's shining image as the Health Minister handling COVID distracted from Pinarayi Vijayan's own image, his own figure and his own leadership, and that may have posed a threat to the Chief Minister. I want to first bring in, before we go to our guest, Gopi Krishnan Unithan has tracked this entire saga from Nipah virus to the healthcare sector, to the Health Minister herself, to the COVID handling, and now to the transition to the new government. Gopi, Shailaja Teacher herself has, has put up a brave face. No matter what her sentiments may be privately, she's never going to express them in public. She's being the good soldier of the LDF and saying that this is an existing rule and she's not surprised by it. But there is a great deal of outrage and surprise that the woman minister who was responsible for the healthcare initiatives and handling during COVID is no longer going to be there in the chair.
Well, absolutely, Shiv, because this particular decision has come as a huge surprise and shock for many. In fact, it was really surprising to realize that Shilaja Teacher will not be in the LDF cabinet or Pinarayi Vijayan cabinet 2.0. It was actually a surprise for many of us when we came to know about this only yesterday. So we have been trying to speak to the party top brass, top leadership, including the senior leaders who have been part of the state committee and state secretariat. The kind of sense or explanation, as already been pointed out by Shilaja Teacher, that has been given, is that the party wanted to give an opportunity for the second tier of leadership or generation, so that the party will not actually face a scenario which is similar to West Bengal or Tripura, where the party had been in power for long years and some ministers had remained in a particular position for a long time, and ultimately they had to pay a huge price, like what happened this year when the LDF or the left parties are nowhere in the picture when it comes to the elections. So all these things happened over a period of about 10 to 12 years. So the LDF or the CPM in Kerala, the official version or the explanation that they are giving at the moment is that they are trying to create a new face for their party. A new generation is being given prior exposure, so that as and when the elder generation makes way for them, they can easily step in. But on the other hand, we cannot rule out the possibilities of some party top leaders being upset or being visibly jealous, if we can use that word, with the popularity of KK Shailaja Teacher,
Yes.
because she has been the face of Kerala's fight against the pandemic. That does not undermine the efforts being taken by the Chief Minister or any other senior leader for that
Let's
matter.
tell our viewers a little bit more about Shailaja before I go to our guests. Gopi, continue to stay with me because even now this is the big talking point in Kerala, and not just in Kerala, in different parts of the country, because Shailaja is not just a Kerala figure. Because of her handling of COVID, she became popular, visible, recognizable all across the country at a time when it was very difficult for any state health minister to claim to have a big handle on the COVID crisis. But what do Shailaja's critics say? Take a look at some of the things that Shailaja's critics are saying, and there are many, mind you. Shailaja is a creation of pure media hype, is one thing that her critics say. Number two, the critics say that Kerala's health infrastructure has already been very strong and robust, and Shailaja is just a figurehead. She was just a health minister, somebody else will replace her, but the credit must go to Kerala's own infrastructure. Number three, she was embraced as a media darling to show up the central government. This is also another allegation that she was embraced by certain sections of the media to try and show up the Modi government as being ineffective and ineffectual. Number five, credit. They say that you can't credit Shailaja for all the good work. You have to credit Pinarayi's leadership for giving Shailaja the platform to do all this good work. So that's what Shilaja Teacher's critics say. Now let's tell you about this big fight over Shailaja. She's been dropped now as health minister. Great deal of outrage, great deal of surprise. There are hashtags trending saying bring Shilaja Teacher back. Let's tell you what worked for her and what worked against her. What worked for her, she won the election with the biggest margin in this election and many elections before as well. What worked against her? The LDF policy not to repeat ministers. That's the official stance. What worked for her? Governance continuity. The argument to keep her as the health minister. Governance continuity during a crucial time like COVID handling. How can you suddenly abruptly change the person in charge? But what is an argument against it? The LDF policy is to give youngsters a chance, and the woman replacing her is a younger woman named Veena George. What works for her, what could have argued in her favor, is that the LDF victory was a big referendum on health performance, which was her charge, which was Shailaja's charge. But credit must go to the Pinarayi government and not to individual ministers, is one claim that goes against Shailaja. Shilaja Teacher can claim that part of the credit for this historic LDF election must go to her because it was on the health plank that this election was fought. But those who are arguing against her say that this was a referendum on Pinarayi Vijayan's leadership, and therefore she cannot claim that as an advantage. Dr. Shama Mohammed, senior leader and Congress spokesperson, is with me live in a moment. We'll also be joined by Dinesh Vashni, who's a leader of the Communist Party of India. Shama, thank you for being with us. I hope you're well. My first question to you, Shama, is, there is all this sort of, buzz over Shilaja Teacher, who had emerged as a very, very popular face. You are from Kerala as well. You know what I'm talking about. There was a great deal of conversation, not only over her performance as a health minister, but also the possibility of her in at some point being a successor to Pinarayi Vijayan. Why do you think she is no longer the health minister today, Shama?
See, Shiv, there are two reasons to this. One, what I see is definitely the insecurity of Pinarayi Vijayan. Pinarayi Vijayan does not want any competition. If you have seen before the election, he is the one who decided. It is not the Politburo that not to give tickets to many people like Thomas Isaac, a well-performing finance minister, to E.P. Jayarajan, and many other, Kodiyeri Balakrishnan, none of them, because he doesn't want competition anymore. So he just said, I'm not going to give them these tickets. And then what happened is, if he could, he wouldn't have also given Shilaja Teacher, but she was so popular. And let's understand, the election was fought on two things. One, on continuity. And the main thing when I was in Kerala was how this government handled COVID.
Yes.
That is what, wherever I went in Kerala, I was there for 4 months. And whenever I spoke to people there, they just said, you know what? They handled COVID very well. And who handled COVID? It was Shilaja Teacher. She was the one who first started. Kerala was the only state at that point of time doing very well. She was spoken about by the United Nations,
yes,
the Guardian, all over the world. But of course, what happens is insecurity. So she used to be doing all the press conferences. But then when Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan understood that she was getting very popular, he sidelined her. And let's understand another very important thing, is that this CPM has the habit of using women. So what did they do? Like they used Gauri Amma before and said CM, Mukhyamantri Gauri Amma, means the CM, Gauri Amma is going to be your CM,
yes,
and gave the CM, made Nayanar the CM at that point of time. Similarly, this time they used her to get the women's vote. A lot of women voted for the LDF because of Shilaja Teacher. So they used her to get all the women's vote, because a lot of women's vote have gone to the LDF. They used her for that. And they used her also to get the COVID, how they performed well during the COVID. They knew that they would get. That's why she's got the highest, 60,000. Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, who they hail and say captain and all those things, got only 40,000 compared to her. So definitely she's a threat. And they did this in her name. And when she won, they just axed her, because there's also patriarchy here. All those Kannur cabal, all of them do not also want her to rise.
Wow.
Just in case now, after some time, if the Lanvilan case comes up, then Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan cannot be the CM, or some issues come up, she can become the CM. But they do not want to allow her to become the CM of Kerala, and they want to completely sideline her. And there is patriarchy here. Let's also understand they use women to build a wall after the Sabrimala issue, a 650-kilometer wall, saying gender equality. But where is gender equality? They must practice.
Shama, I'll come back to the gender issue in just a moment. Let's get a view in from Dinesh Vashni.
And of course, this
the 2 points you made on insecurity, the issue of insecurity and patriarchy are 2 points that you've made. Dinesh Vashni of the CPI is with me on the phone line. Mr. Vashni, the allegation, not just from the Congress spokesperson on the show, but many people out there are actors, influencers, prominent personalities who are saying bring Shilaja Teacher back. The sense is that her popularity has done her in, and this is all about insecurity, paranoia and patriarchy, that she has been axed from the Pinarayi Vijayan cabinet, sir.
This is all what you said is not correct. All these allegations are concocted. You see, when Shilaja came into cabinet, she was also first-timer. Don't forget this fact. This is a uniform policy decision. Whether it is CPM or CPI, all of them have dropped their earlier minister. For example, it is not Shilaja has done a commendable work dealing with the pandemic. We recognize that. That's why she is the chief whip of the party in the assembly.
But sir,
And similarly,
what is
Sunil
chief
Kumar
whip,
made
sir?
the
She was
Please allow
the
me to say-
internationally recognized health minister of Kerala during a once-in-a-century pandemic, sir. Surely a uniform policy can be kept aside, with respect to continuity and the need to continue her good work.
You see, similarly, the civil supplies and the PDS minister has done a great job. All the PDS shops in Kerala has become more popular than the malls for supplying the essential items to not only the poor of the Kerala, but even to the migrant labor, to whom they call guest labor. Similarly, Kerala was very short of vegetables, and Agriculture Minister V.S. Sunil Kumar made agriculture vegetable surplus state. So all of them are dropped. So it is not like that. As far as insecurity is concerned, there is no insecurity. Shailaja has been recognized, her work has been recognized. She is still the chief whip of the party.
Stay with me, sir. Shama, do you buy that? Do you buy that explanation at all? That this was policy? All the ministers, even other ministers who've done good work, have also been, replaced in this succession, and therefore there is no. You can't say anything as far as insecurity is concerned. My argument, Shama, to that would be COVID is a big deal. It makes everything completely, different. The circumstances are different here. How would you respond to that, Shama?
See, if that is the case, then Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan also should give it to somebody else, isn't it? If the election is fought on somebody, and if you're saying that it was fought on her, one part of it, the COVID thing, how Kerala has done is because of her. Let me tell you that. So if that is the case, then they should also change Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan. And the other very important thing is that this is the time in Kerala where we are facing, the situation has become grave in terms of COVID. Last time it wasn't this. So what would we do? We would need her even more in Kerala, seeing the situation. And they should say, what? There should be continuity. She knew how to run the thing and give it back to her. And but another important point, why does Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan want all these inexperienced ministers? Is because he wants to be completely in control. Now he will say, simple Simon says, stand up, all of them will stand. Sit down. So it's just going to be his office in charge. And let me tell you, he is going the Modi way. This is exactly what he wanted. And also, let's see, there's nepotism into that, because he's made his son-in-law.
I'm going to come to that. We have a separate report on that, Shama. We have a separate report. Let's just focus on Shailaja here for a moment.
So what I'm saying is that they should get her back and make her the health minister. It is very important because they fought the election in her name, and it is also something which would give women of Kerala. Let's also understand Kerala is a state with more women to men. Kerala is a state with 94% literacy, and Kerala is a state with...
Mr. Vashni, let us finish. I'll come to you. You can answer her. Let her finish.
We have a woman, a strong woman coming out there, and also future chief minister.
You cannot continue your monologue like this.
Please answer. Mr. Vashni, two issues raised by Shama. Let me just summarize. 1 second. Let me just summarize. Mr. Vashni, Shama says this is also an issue of Pinarayi Vijayan feeling threatened by someone like Shailaja, and that's one of the reasons why this excuse has been used to sort of shunt her out. Because of her rising popularity and good work, she was somehow a threat to Pinarayi Vijayan.
Do you know one thing? The earlier chief minister to the Kerala from the LDF government, before Pinarayi Vijayan, was more popular than Pinarayi Vijayan. Not only nationally but internationally. He was replaced by the left parties, collective decision. So we believe in collectivity. Collective decision has been taken. As and when the times come, even Pinarayi Vijayan will be replaced. It is not the headache of the Congress or BJP. It is our headache, and we'll do it. We believe in collectivity. No leader is supreme more than the party. This is not the BJP where Modi is supreme. This is not the Congress where the Congress leaders are the supreme. We believe in internal democracy, and we have a complete democracy in our party.
So can I ask you one thing? Can I ask you, then why did you fight the election in Pinarayi Vijayan's name? Why didn't you not fight it as LDF?
Shama, let me reply first, please.
Let him finish. Shama, let him finish, then you can answer your question.
Why did you fight the election in Pinarayi Vijayan's name then?
Shama, let him answer you, then you can ask your question.
Why was the election fought on his name?
Shama, you can continue to ask me a question. I am not running away. Let me tell you one thing. Please try to understand one thing.
Shama, let him answer.
Try to understand one thing.
Shama, 1 second. Let him answer, then you can ask your next question.
And then you do this.
Shama, let him answer. Let him answer.
Contradicting yourself.
Shama, let Dinesh Vashni answer.
Archana Achyutanandan was not world famous. Achyutanandan was not famous all over the world like
will you please
the
listen to
health
me?
minister.
You are not allowing me to speak, and this is unfortunate. This is a problem with you people.
Shama, let him answer.
Try
Then
to
you can ask your next
understand,
question.
the Health Minister Shailaja has been replaced by another lady Health Minister.
Yeah, Veena
She's
George.
as much as capable. We made her capable. We believe in training. We believe in success. We believe in planning. We believe in collectivity. We are not an individualistic party. We are not a hierarchical party. We believe in ideological trainings, and training always helps.
So
And that is why
if
most of
somebody
the
does
left
well,
governments
you do
throughout the
not-
world
you do not
are
give
more
them the
successful
reward.
in dealing with
You
the
will not
pandemic
reward
throughout the world
somebody who's
than the
done very
That's
well.
what I'm wondering about. That's what I'm wondering about. Mr. Vashni, the point about, forget about rewards. Let's not use the word reward because that sounds awkward during COVID. But someone who has done good work, someone who has elevated the name of Kerala both nationally and internationally during a crisis when everybody has done badly, surely, this collective policy of no repeating ministers can be kept aside for the sake of continuity, especially when citizens of Kerala's lives are at stake, sir. That's the reason why people are suspicious about this move.
Let me give you a recent example. The finance minister of Kerala managed the finances of the Kerala better than any other state, despite the fact that the central government has not paid the GST due and other dues to the Kerala. Even then he managed. Even he is dropped. This is a uniform decision, always the uniform policy decision causes one or the other concern. Those concerns will be met. That is why she is made chief whip of the party.
Okay,
this is not a small post, Baba.
But chief whip, sir, chief whip seems to be a very, very small thing compared to being the health minister of the state. I mean,
No,
that
for
is
you maybe, for us,
Sir,
for communist parties it is not.
Sir,
For
no,
communist parties it is not.
Is chief whip any consolation? Shama, you're a politician, you would know better. Is chief whip any consolation after axing someone as the health minister?
Definitely not. Definitely not. And also, let us look at the other angle. She's one, of course, a threat. And somebody who's done very well normally is
won by a record
instead
margin.
of using the word acknowledge, but because she's a woman, let me tell you, in Kerala there is an issue about especially in the CPM, they do not want to get threatened by her. What you did to Gauri Amma is exactly what you're doing right now. Why do you use women? You used her to get votes and then you just throw her away. That's what you've done. You have used Shilaja Teacher
What have you done to the Congress cadre in Kerala? I would like to ask you. What have you done to replace the elderly people from Congress who have taken the Congress to this type of sinking ship? What have you done? Have you brought the younger generation into Congress in Kerala or anywhere in the country? No. The elderly people
we are
are not
ready to. We are ready to. Rahul Gandhi is ready to bring, but that's not the
We don't
question.
have
We are
these type of
discussing
groups.
about Shilaja Teacher.
Do not provoke me to attack Congress. Don't provoke me to attack Congress.
Okay.
Somebody who's done very well for the state, who is world famous, and you're not acknowledging her.
The point right now is it's not just.
Nobody is denying the services.
I just want to come in here for a moment, Mr. Vashni. I respect both your views. My simple view, it's not just about Shama, it's not just about the Congress party, it's not just about your detractors. There are apolitical people who are saying why. There are apolitical people who are questioning why Shilaja Teacher has been axed. Nobody, these are not people who are fans of Shilaja or people who are, the so-called sections of the media who are embracing her. These are reasonable-minded people who are saying, you've got a crisis in your hands. Shouldn't continuity be your calling card as far as the healthcare system is concerned? Now let's put Shilaja Teacher aside for just a moment, because we can go on and on about Shilaja Teacher. Both of you have had your say. Let's move to the next issue. Stay with me, both of you.